Hi everybody, Lady Sky here. Um, I am working on this tree, and I pointed it out on my Instagram that I made a mistake while I was doing this tree. I started it when I was at the library, and I forgot which marker I was using to create this glorious color. And so I came home and tried, I think, 4 different markers on the tree before I realized it was this one. And by that time, I had already used this lovely dark maroon and made that mistake of messing up my tree. Well, what I quickly, of course, realized is that I didn't mess up anything. I just simply created an opportunity to add some depth to my tree that I would not have added had I not made that mistake. But the thing is, we have a culture of perfection that we really don't address enough. Um, it starts in our schools where a child makes a D, and instead of us saying, great, now we know where to start, we now know where you need more help, we now know where we can help you. Instead of that being the language, it becomes, shame on you, you should have gotten an A. And we focus more on the grade that they should have gotten, the perfectionist grade. Um, that high bar they should have reached, without considering anything that may have stopped them from reaching that bar. Like maybe they didn't understand the concept, maybe they have a learning disorder, things of that nature. We jump straight to the perfection. And then this continues throughout our lives and in our relationships, in our families, in our society, um, in our jobs. This culture of perfection. I have to do better because I didn't get it perfect the first time. When I um, when I left art school, I had this thought of, well, I've left art school, I can't be an artist. Rather than realizing that the money and time I spent in art school wasn't a waste at all. It was a cost I paid for the lessons I learned through attempting art school. The lesson I ultimately walked away with, which I didn't get this at first, it took me many, many years and several mentors, etc. But eventually I came to the conclusion that leaving art school was the best thing for me because it forced me to look outside of the institution for answers. It caused me to look inside myself. What could I do that art school could not give me? And even though I wasted the tuition money and money on materials and resources, etc., I gained so many valuable lessons about techniques, how to do things that created art that was uniquely mine and not some version of something I was taught. Um, it caused me to look for artists who didn't go to art school. It caused me to expand my repertoire of what art could include and should include. It caused me to look at art from other cultures and communities, um, people who had to create their art on the fringe for, many reasons, from being unable to afford art school to um, not knowing that art school was even an option. So, leaving art school, I could have focused on the sunk cost. I wasted the tuition money, therefore I have to stay here and tough this out. I could have focused on the um, the people around me at the time who thought, pretty much similar to the sunk cost fallacy of, well, you've spent the money, you may as well stick it out. Or you've committed, therefore you have to stick it out. These types of perfectionist narratives that hold people where they won't grow. And looking back, I realized I would never have grown as an artist if I had stayed there. So recently I had a similar situation where I had to leave a situation, and I was falling into the sunk cost fallacy of, I've placed all these resources into this endeavor and now it's not working for me, so I need to find my bootstraps and bootstrap it, or just get over it and deal with it, or those kinds of toxic narratives of the perfectionist system that we all live in, where I was just feeling trapped. And fortunately, I have an amazing support system, and I have cultivated excellent mentors who help me pull that apart and see that I was falling into the sunk cost fallacy, but also helped me to see that I was listening to my perfectionism. I was listening to my imposter syndrome, that sick voice in your head that tells you, well, you're not good enough. If you were better, if you deserved this, then it would work out for you. Or like all of those things that you say to yourself in your darkest moments, where you thought, I'm not worthy of this, and that's why it's not working out. I'm incapable of this, and that's why I can't do this. Things like that. When it's really, you are going up against a system that is not for you, a situation that's not for you. You were meant for something different. There was a lesson here that you needed to pick up, that you needed to learn in order for you to move on to the next thing. Now, that does not mean that the next thing that you move on to is going to work out perfectly. Perfection doesn't exist. Perfection was thought up by people to keep you in broken systems. If you were perfect, then you would be able to live within these systems. And because you aren't perfect, and because you're not being able to live within these systems, the problem must be you and not the system itself. That is the fallacy that perfectionism teaches us, that we are the problem rather than the system being the problem. The system of perfection, the systems of society that keep us in that system of perfection. The next time you have somebody who's on you about the sunk cost of whatever it is you are trying to get away from or deal with, consider where that's coming from. Is it coming from their perfectionism? Is it coming from their worship of the capitalistic overlords? Where is that mentality coming from? Because you can always make more money. You can never make more time. And if you're spending your time railing against something like perfectionism, then you are wasting your time. The idea of failure is that is where you grow. When we fail, that is where we can learn and make changes and do things differently. Our failures are our greatest achievements, in that is where we learn the most. So had I not used the wrong marker on this tree, I would not have thought about the depth that I can create with this, the change that this tree will overcome as a whole in my artwork, that will make it unique and that will set it apart from every other tree that I have drawn in the last 6 months. But then I had to think about, why do I like drawing trees? I like drawing trees because they aren't perfect. You can't mess up a tree. If you watch a tree swaying in the breeze, you will catch all of its imperfections, branches that are broken, things that grew funny because it's the only way it could reach the sun. Um, Two trees joining together because they were planted too close together. It is just amazing to see all of the different and unique ways that trees grow that are just not perfect. And we are no different than the trees of the fields or the galaxies of the universe that grow and expand through violent outbursts and explosions that create the most beautiful galaxy with the most perfect spiral arm. You are just as beautiful and worthy and whole as any of those creations of nature, because you yourself are a creation of nature that was created whole and worthy and unique. Nobody else was created like you, and that is to be celebrated and owned, because you deserve all of your goals, and you deserve to grow and make mistakes without somebody coming at you and telling you about how perfect you should be. Because perfectionism isn't real. It does not exist. So if you're sitting on the sunk cost fallacy and thinking, I've already put in all of these resources and time and then take the time to think, what could I have learned from this, and move on to the next thing? Because you deserve your goals, and you deserve your time to be filled with things that fulfill you. And if that isn't what you're doing right now, it's okay to let go and move on. It's okay to sit down, write down your goals, write down what you have learned from where you're at, and move on to something else. Because you deserve a good life. Regardless of the mistakes you have made, regardless of the resources you have squandered, regardless of whatever is going on in the world around you, you deserve to move on to good things. You deserve good things. And you deserve love and care. And your imposter syndrome is lying to you. Your anxiety is lying to you. You are whole, you are worthy, and you deserve to move on with the lessons that you have learned. Even if the people around you don't agree. Even if you don't, at the moment, agree. And even if you can't see the lessons that you've learned, that's okay too. Sometimes it takes a while before you can look back and say, oh, that's the thing. That's okay too. Sometimes we make mistakes while we're doing art and we don't see them in the moment. And then we see them later and we think, oh gosh. And that's like the only thing that you can see when you look at that art afterwards, is just that mistake that you've made. But really, that's just the lesson. Try to look for the lessons and the mistakes. Try to look for all of the ways that your perfectionism is showing up and ruining the party. Cultivate relationships with people who will help you find the lessons and help you deal with the things. Of course, we don't want somebody who's going to swoop in and save the day and do the thing for us. That's not anybody else's job. It's your job to pick yourself up after you've made a mistake. But you can have people around you who can say, hey, here's the mistake, here's the thing. And maybe here's some tools that might help. But it's up to you to pick up the tools. It's up to you to learn from the mistake. And it's up to you to pick yourself up and move on to the next right thing. And you are capable of doing that, and you are worthy of doing that. You deserve the next right thing. Don't listen to your imposter syndrome. Don't listen to the time sinks and the money pits or the other aspects of the mistake that you may have made. None of that matters. What matters is that you pick up your lessons, you pick up yourself, you let go of the perfection, and move on to the next right thing. Because you deserve it, because you're worthy of it, and you can do this. Much love to you, wherever you are.